The house felt different the moment Emma Carter stepped inside, emptier than she expected, but not in the way that comes from a parent's death. It was the kind of emptiness that suggested something had been waiting there for her, something her mother had left behind deliberately. Dusty beams of afternoon light filtered through the windows as Emma dropped her keys in the brass bowl on the hallway table, the same bowl her mother used for loose change and letters she kept forgetting to mail. The air smelled faintly of almond soap and old books, and every room still carried the quiet tension her mother had lived with in her final years, a tension Emma always sensed but never understood. She wandered through the living room, touching the back of the sofa, the framed photographs, the piano her mother hadn't played since the family fallout 12 years ago. The memories came back in sharp fragments. Raised voices, slammed doors, her Uncle Nathan storming out after accusing her mother of stealing what was never hers, and Aunt Donna refusing to attend holidays unless the conversation was strictly cheerful. Emma had grown up believing adults overreacted, that time healed everything, that people eventually forgave. But time hadn't done a thing here. Time had only buried the ugliness under years of quiet resentment. Upstairs, she moved through her mother's bedroom, neatly ordered as if the woman planned to return. Emma opened drawers, checking for documents, donations, bills needing attention, anything that required closure. Then, behind a stack of old sweaters and a tin of sewing supplies, she felt something solid pressed against the back panel of the drawer. She tugged it out and froze. A dark brown leather journal, thick and worn around the edges, as if thumbed through hundreds of times. Her mother's handwriting, small, tight, anxious, covered the label on the front, "For Emma, not before my death." The words sank through her chest like weight. Her mother had never been dramatic, never secretive, never the type to leave behind ominous instructions. Emma sat cross-legged on the carpet, holding the journal in both hands, feeling its warmth as though it had been waiting for her. She hesitated before opening it, afraid of what kind of truths were inside. But a part of her, a part she didn't want to admit, was ready. Ready because deep down she knew her mother hadn't told her everything. She opened the cover. The first entry dated back to the spring of 2011, the year the family war started. Emma read the opening lines, her mother's voice rushing back through the loops of ink. "If anyone ever reads this, know that I tried to protect my children. I tried to keep this family together. But they forced me to fight." Emma's breath tightened. She kept reading. Her mother described the first meeting with Nathan and Donna after their parents' deaths, when the three siblings were supposed to discuss how to handle the inheritance, chiefly the old Carter family home in Vermont. It had been their mother's pride, the house where all three children were born, the house filled with decades of birthdays, Christmases, and photographs. According to the will, the property was to be divided equally among them. But according to the journal, Nathan had arrived with a lawyer and a pre-drafted transfer agreement demanding sole ownership. Donna, meanwhile, claimed she had always been their parents' favorite caretaker and deserved compensation for her years of unpaid labor. Their mother, Emma's mother, was caught off guard but refused to sign anything. "They called me selfish," the journal read. "They said I was ungrateful, that I was standing in the way of what they deserved. They told me I had no idea how much our parents had promised them behind closed doors. But they were lying. I could hear it in every shaky word." Emma closed her eyes for a moment, seeing her mother sitting at that meeting table, surrounded by people who should have loved her. She kept flipping through the pages. The entries grew sharper, darker. There were descriptions of phone calls late at night, threats disguised as warnings, attempts to isolate her mother by telling neighbors she was mentally unstable. Donna had tried to bribe a realtor to claim the house needed unsafe renovations, hoping to force a sale. Nathan had dug through their parents' financial documents, searching for loopholes. Every page peeled away another layer of the family Emma once thought was simply complicated but fixable. This was far beyond complicated. This was war. By the fifth entry, Emma felt tears gathering. She hadn't known any of this. Her mother had never burdened her with it. She had told Emma it was simply a disagreement, that everyone needed space, and Emma, still in college at the time, let herself believe it. But the journal told a different story, one filled with manipulation, betrayal, and escalating tensions that stretched years, long after Emma stopped asking questions. At the end of the first section, a final line awaited her. "If you're reading this now, Emma, it means they will want the house again. And they will want this journal even more. Do not trust them. Not anymore. Emma stared at the page, her pulse quickening, an icy awareness sliding through her. Her mother wasn't being dramatic. She was warning her. And for the first time in her life, Emma wondered if Nathan and Donna had been waiting all along for her mother to die, just so they could finish what they started. Emma sat on the floor for a long time, the journal open across her knees, her hands trembling as if the ink itself carried a charge. She couldn't stop reading, even though every sentence felt like it was lowering her deeper into a place she didn't want to be, a place where her family wasn't just fractured but poisoned. The next section of the journal described the aftermath of the first fight, how Nathan and Donna had tried to pressure their mother into signing documents by cornering her at gatherings, ambushing her at the grocery store, even showing up unannounced at her workplace. Her mother wrote about how she learned to keep the blinds closed at night, how she drove different routes home to avoid being followed, how the stress began to affect her health. Emma felt a cold prickle crawl down her back. She had been so wrapped up in her own life back then, exams, first apartments, first relationships, that she had missed the fear living in her own mother's eyes. The journal shifted into a new tone as the months passed, her mother documenting retaliations of her own. She wrote about gathering old letters and photographs that contradicted Nathan's claims, about speaking privately with their parents' lawyer, about finding financial records that proved Donna had been siphoning money from their mother's account years before either parent died. They think I'm weak, one entry said. They think kindness is the same as surrender. They don't know what I'm willing to protect. Emma reread that line 3 times. She had always thought of her mother as gentle, maybe even timid. But the woman described in these pages was entirely different, strategic, calculating, fiercely defensive. It was like discovering her mother had been leading a secret life while playing the role of the soft, loving parent at home. The entries continued. Her mother wrote about an incident where she caught Nathan breaking into the Vermont house at night, claiming he was checking for leaks, but leaving with a box of their parents' personal documents. She wrote about Donna spreading rumors that her mother had become paranoid, possibly unstable, hoping to discredit her if the inheritance dispute went to court. She wrote about a late-night phone call from a blocked number. Sign the papers, or we'll make you wish you had. Emma's pulse hammered as she read. Why hadn't her mother told her? Why had she carried this alone? Then, on the next page, the answer emerged in her mother's careful, slanted handwriting. I didn't want Emma to see what her family had become. I didn't want her to grow up afraid of the people who share her blood. Emma wiped her eyes with the back of her wrist, her breath shaking. She kept reading, compelled by a mixture of heartbreak and morbid curiosity. The journal entries grew more intense the deeper she went. There was one incident where Donna showed up at the Vermont property with 2 men Emma's mother didn't recognize, contractors, she claimed, who were there to appraise the house. But her mother knew something was wrong. She described how the men walked through the rooms without taking measurements, how they lingered by the safe containing their parents' documents, how Donna refused to look her in the eye. Her mother confronted them and threatened to call the police. Donna yelled at her, called her a selfish liar, and stormed off screaming that she would get what's hers no matter what. The next day, someone slashed the tires on her mother's car. There were no witnesses, no cameras, just a quiet street and a message meant to intimidate. Emma felt the urge to stand up, to pace, to scream. This didn't feel like family drama anymore. This felt criminal, dangerous. Her mother had lived through this for years, and Emma had been oblivious. The journal then shifted into the darkest phase yet. Her mother wrote about finding a forged document in her mailbox, one claiming she had willingly transferred her share of the property to Nathan. It was dated and signed with handwriting that looked eerily similar to her own. If I didn't know my signature better than my own face, I might have believed it, she wrote. They're escalating. They want the house at any cost. Emma pressed the back of her hand to her mouth. Forgery, harassment, threats. What had her family become? But then the tone changed again. Her mother began documenting her counterplan. She mentioned making copies of important documents, hiding originals in safe places, and writing down everything that happened so that there was always a record, even if they tried to rewrite the truth. Emma realized suddenly why the journal existed. It wasn't just a confession. It was evidence, a ledger, a weapon, and now it was in Emma's hands. Toward the end of the section, her mother wrote, "I know they'll come after Emma when I'm gone. I know they'll smile and pretend to grieve, but what they want is power. They want the past to disappear. They want to erase me, and they will try to erase her too. But she is stronger than they think. She always has been." Emma shut her eyes, swallowing hard, fighting the wave of emotion rising inside her. Her mother had been preparing her for a battle Emma never knew she'd have to fight. A battle that wasn't over. Because Nathan and Donna didn't know yet that the journal existed. But they would want it the moment they learned. And Emma knew one thing for certain as she held the pages that pulsed with truth. Her mother hadn't just left her a record. She had left her a war. Emma didn't sleep that night. She lay awake listening to every creak the old house made, every gust of wind brushing against the siding, every distant car rolling down the road as if it carried the people she feared would eventually come knocking. At sunrise, with her nerves wired tight, she drove the journal to her small rented office at the local community center. Neutral ground. No family memories. No hidden keys under flower pots where someone might break in. She placed the journal on her desk like it was radioactive, then opened her laptop and began scanning the pages, creating digital copies in case the original went missing or was taken. It felt like treason, like betraying some sacred trust, but she kept hearing her mother's words. They will come for her next. As the scanner whirred, Emma kept glancing at the window, half expecting Nathan's truck or Donna's silver sedan to appear in the parking lot. She forced herself to breathe, reminding herself that no one knew what she had found, except she didn't truly believe that. Secrets in her family never stayed buried long. By noon, she had backups on 2 flash drives and encrypted files saved on the cloud. Only then did she let herself read further into the journal, and what she found next chilled her in a way she didn't know words could. The entries turned into an account of the final confrontation between her mother and her siblings, written in tight, clipped sentences as though even recalling the events had drained her. According to her mother, the fight wasn't just about the house. It was about an old secret buried long before their parents died, something Nathan and Donna were desperate to keep hidden. Emma leaned closer, unable to stop herself even though her heart was pounding. Her mother wrote about discovering a second safe in the Vermont house, one hidden behind a false wall panel in the attic. Inside were documents, old letters, a hospital bill, photographs of a baby Emma had never heard of. "They lied to me," her mother wrote. "They lied to all of us. There was another child, another heir." Emma froze. Another heir? Her mother described confronting Nathan and Donna about the documents, how both of them went pale when she showed them the photos, how they begged her to keep quiet for the sake of the family name. According to the entries, their father had once had an affair, and the woman had given birth to a child who lived only a few months before dying under uncertain circumstances. The documents suggested that someone, Emma didn't know who, had paid the mother to keep silent and had hidden the entire ordeal. Her mother wrote, "They claimed I didn't understand what I was holding, but I understood enough to know they were terrified." Emma felt dizzy. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. It was about rewriting the entire family history. Her mother wrote that Nathan had tried to grab the envelope with the documents from her hand. Donna had screamed at him to stop, terrified someone else in the house might hear. The fight escalated into pushing, shouting, threats. Her mother left the house with the documents and hid them somewhere safe, though the journal didn't say where. Emma reread those paragraphs over and over, trying to piece together the truth from between the lines. Had the documents been real? Were they still hidden somewhere? Had her mother left them behind for her to find? The journal offered no easy answers. Before she could go further, her office door rattled with a sudden knock, and Emma's entire body jumped. Her breath caught in her throat as she turned, her heart hammering like a trapped bird. She approached slowly, half expecting to see one of her relatives on the other side. But instead she found Mrs. Dorsey, the elderly volunteer coordinator, holding a stack of flyers. Emma forced herself to smile, accepting them with a shaky, "Thank you," before closing her door again, locking it with trembling fingers. She leaned back against the door, breathing hard. Even innocent noises now felt like intrusions. When she sat down again, she forced herself to keep reading. The next section of the journal documented her mother's growing fear. Entries written late at night, the handwriting uneven, the tone whispery and frantic. She described seeing Nathan's truck parked across the street on multiple nights, watching from the shadows. She wrote about Donna calling repeatedly from unknown numbers. She wrote about someone jiggling the back door handle at 3 in the morning. I don't know what they'll do. One entry read. They think I stole from them. They think I'm hiding something. Maybe I am. Emma's chest tightened. Her mother hadn't just been afraid. She had been hunted. And nothing in the journal suggested that the situation ever truly resolved. There was no apology, no peace, no closure. Just silence. Abrupt silence. The entries ended 6 months before her mother died. No explanation. No summary. No final message. As if the story had been interrupted. As if something, or someone, had stopped her from writing more. Emma closed the journal slowly, her hands cold. She didn't know whether she was shaking from fear or rage. But she did know one thing. If her mother had hidden documents, someone else had been looking for them too. And that someone might have already realized the journal was missing. The thought pressed against her mind like a warning. Emma reached for her phone, intending to call the lawyer her mother had once mentioned. But before she could dial, the phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Bring the journal to the old Vermont house tonight. You owe your family the truth. Emma stared at the message, her heart freezing. They knew. They knew she had it. And they were waiting. Emma's hands trembled as she stared at the message, the words blurring for a moment before snapping into focus again with a kind of cold finality that made her swallow hard. She felt as though the walls of the tiny community center office were slowly closing in on her, squeezing the air from her lungs. She deleted nothing, saved nothing, just pocketed the phone and stood there, frozen, her mind racing in a dozen directions at once. She should call the police, she told herself, but what would she even say? My dead mother accused my aunt and uncle of threatening her because of a hidden heir and a secret envelope stuffed with decades-old documents? And now they're texting me from burner numbers? Even saying it in her head sounded unhinged. And worst of all, she wasn't even sure the message came from Nathan or Donna. It could have come from someone else entirely. The journal made it clear her mother had enemies she'd never named. She needed to move, to think, to breathe, so she grabbed the journal, stuffed it into her backpack, and left the building, locking the office door behind her. Outside, the sunlight felt too bright, too sharp, as though it was exposing her. The parking lot was nearly empty except for her car and a blue sedan she didn't recognize, its windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. She walked toward her car slowly, feeling the back of her neck prickle. The sedan didn't start, didn't move, but she couldn't shake the feeling that someone inside was watching her. She forced herself to unlock her car with steady movements, climbed in, and pulled out of the lot, checking the rearview mirror every few seconds. The sedan stayed parked, but she still didn't feel safe. She drove to her apartment, small, quiet, forgettable, locked every door, closed the blinds, and sat on the couch with the journal in her lap, trying to understand how her life had exploded so quickly. The message demanded she bring the journal to the Vermont house tonight. Did she trust that? No. Did she have a choice? Also no. Ignoring the message wasn't safe. Not when she had no idea who sent it or what they were willing to do. Her mother's entries about someone at the door at 3 a.m. replayed in her mind like a warning. Whoever wanted this journal wasn't afraid to show up in person. As afternoon faded to evening, she opened the journal again, searching for anything that could warn her what she might be walking into. Halfway through a reread of the last entries, she noticed something she had missed before, a faint indentation in the page beneath an earlier note, as though her mother had written something, tore the page out, but pressed hard enough to leave an imprint. Emma held the page up to the window, glancing across the surface until the faint grooves caught the light. She grabbed a pencil and began shading over the page lightly, the old trick revealing the ghost of the missing writing. Slowly, words appeared. If they read this, I'm dead. Her breath hitched. She kept shading, pressing harder, the graphite slowly unveiling the rest. The truth is not in the journal. It's in the house. Emma sat back, her pulse hammering. The Vermont house, of course. That was why they wanted her there. Not for the journal itself, but because it was a key to something else. Something her mother hid. A final act of defiance. The house held the documents, or something even more explosive. Emma checked the time. 7:14 p.m. Sunset. She wasn't ready, but she couldn't wait. She packed lightly. Her phone, a flashlight, a pocket knife she barely knew how to use, and a journal. She drove with every nerve in her body on high alert, her eyes scanning the mirrors, the shoulders of the road, the cars behind her. She didn't see the blue sedan again, but she did notice a black pickup appear behind her 2 towns over, following her for nearly 15 minutes before turning away at the county line. Maybe a coincidence. Maybe not. By the time she reached the Vermont house, the sky was a deep indigo, the last light fading behind the hills. The house loomed dark and silent, its shape familiar yet foreign. Her grandparents had once filled it with laughter, holidays, warmth. Now it looked like a place where secrets came to rot. She parked far up the driveway, her tires crunching over gravel, the sound too loud in the quiet night. She cut the engine and stepped out, the crisp air hitting her like a slap. The world felt unnervingly still. No insects, no wind, just waiting. The porch light was off. No other cars were parked nearby. If someone was inside, they weren't making themselves known. Emma approached the front door slowly, every step deliberate, her backpack heavy with the journal. She reached for the doorknob, only to stop when she noticed it was already slightly ajar. A thin line of darkness peeked through the crack. Someone had been here. Someone might still be here. Her stomach tightened, but she pushed the door open anyway. The hinges groaned loudly, the sound echoing through the empty halls. Inside, the air smelled faintly of dust and something else, something metallic, something unsettling. The living room was dim, moonlight casting long shadows across the furniture. Nothing looked disturbed. Nothing looked welcoming either. She stepped inside, forcing herself to breathe, and whispered, "Mom, I hope you knew what you were doing." Then, from somewhere deep inside the house, down the hallway toward the attic stairs, she heard a soft thump. Not loud, not accidental. A deliberate, unmistakable sound. She wasn't alone. Emma froze, every nerve in her body tightening as the soft thump echoed through the hallway. A sound so controlled and deliberate it sent a cold ripple down her spine. She didn't dare call out, didn't dare announce her presence to whoever, or whatever, was upstairs. Instead, she pressed herself against the wall, listening so intently she could hear her own pulse pounding in her ears. After several long, breathless seconds, she forced herself to move, inching toward the hallway with slow, measured steps, her flashlight gripped so tightly her knuckles ached. The Vermont house felt different now. Nothing like the warm, cluttered home from her childhood memories. Instead, it carried the hollow, abandoned silence of a place that remembered everything and forgave nothing. She reached the bottom of the narrow staircase that led to the attic, and the thump came again, this time heavier, as though someone had shifted their weight above her. Her breath faltered. She turned off the flashlight, not wanting to give away her position, and let her eyes adjust to the sliver of moonlight filtering through the hall window. Slowly, quietly, she moved up the stairs, each step creaking with an agonizing groan that seemed far too loud in the oppressive stillness. Halfway up, she heard the faint rustle of paper, followed by the unmistakable sound of someone exhaling sharply, as though annoyed, or frustrated, or afraid. Her heart lurched. Someone else was searching. Someone else knew what her mother had hidden. When she reached the attic door, she found it slightly open, just like the front door. She nudged it wider with her fingertips, revealing the attic shrouded in shadows, filled with boxes, furniture covered in sheets, and the faint outline of the old dresser where her mother had written about finding the hidden safe behind a loose panel. But Emma didn't have time to examine the room, because a figure stood near the far wall, dimly lit by the moonlight through the small attic window. The person froze when they heard the door shift. Then they turned. Emma? The voice, familiar, shaken, made her gasp. It was Donna. Her aunt wore a heavy coat, her hair disheveled, her expression caught between guilt, panic, and something darker Emma didn't recognize. "What are you doing here?" Emma asked, her voice a whisper edged with steel. "You shouldn't be here alone." Donna took a small step forward, hands raised as though to calm her. "I got the same message you did. Someone wants us here, both of us." Emma felt her throat tighten. "You sent the message." "No," Donna said quickly, almost too quickly. "I swear on my life I didn't." Emma didn't trust her. She doubted she ever would again. But before she could respond, another sound sliced through the attic. a slow clap descending from the top of the stairs behind her. Emma spun around, her heart slamming against her ribs, and saw a dark shape step through the doorway. Nathan. He looked gaunt, intense, the kind of tired that came from years of holding secrets too heavy for one person. He held no weapon, just a flashlight and a crumpled piece of paper in his hand. Good, he said, voice low. We're finally all here. Emma backed up instinctively, her shoulder brushing the dusty dresser. Donna stiffened. Nathan, what are you doing? Finishing what should have been finished a long time ago. His voice carried a cold resolve that made Emma's skin crawl. He stepped inside the attic, closing the door behind him with a soft click that felt like a trap snapping shut. You two think this is about the house? He asked. About money? About who gets what piece of land? He held up the crumpled paper, the same demand Emma had received. No, someone else is pulling the strings. Emma's breath caught. Who? Nathan's eyes gleamed with something between fear and bitterness. The man whose life fell apart because of what our father did. The man Mom discovered the truth about. The man who lost a child while our father kept living like nothing happened. Emma felt her stomach drop. The other heir's family. Not family, Nathan corrected sharply. The father. The one nobody ever told the truth. The one Dad paid off. The one who never got answers. Donna swallowed hard. Nathan, how do you know this? He pointed to the attic wall. Because Mom didn't hide the documents. She hid his letters. Emma felt her pulse spike. She reached for the dresser, her hands trembling as she pulled it away from the wall. Dust billowed, and Donna coughed. Behind the dresser, the wooden panel was cracked slightly at the corner, just enough for her to pry it loose. Inside was a narrow compartment stuffed with envelopes, old, yellowed, brittle, dozens of them. Emma gently lifted one, scanning the faded text. They weren't addressed to her mother. They were addressed to her grandfather. Please, I need answers about my son. Please tell me why you took him from me. Please tell me what happened in that hospital. Emma felt her throat constrict, her breath trembling as she flipped through more envelopes. Each one grew angrier, more desperate, more broken, and all of them had been ignored. Mom found these, Nathan said quietly. That's why she fought us. She wanted the truth out. We panicked. Donna wiped her eyes with a shaking hand. We never meant to hurt her. Emma stared at them both, stunned. But before she could speak, the floorboards behind them creaked again, slow, heavy steps moving up the attic stairs. Emma's blood ran cold. This time, it wasn't Donna. It wasn't Nathan. Someone else had entered the house. Someone who had been waiting for all three of them to gather. Someone who wanted the truth revealed, or buried forever. The attic door handle turned, and Emma realized, too late, that the real danger had just arrived. The night after the fire felt like a slow-moving dream, but morning arrived with a sharp, cutting clarity that forced Emma to face everything she had been avoiding. The ruins of the house, the broken pieces of her family, and the final truth buried inside the pages her mother had fought so hard to hide. She walked across the blackened grass, still damp from the fire hoses, and crouched beside the charred foundation where the kitchen once stood. Smoke still whispered up from certain pockets, rising in thin gray threads that curled into the cold air. Emma held the last surviving notebook close to her chest, the one she had grabbed in her panic, and forced herself to open it, knowing she couldn't move forward without seeing how her mother's story ended. The final entries were almost frantic, the handwriting sharper, the lines slanted, as if written in fear or urgency. Her mother had realized, far too late, that the lies she spun to protect the house had only strengthened her siblings' determination to take it from her. She had uncovered proof that the uncle had been bribing a local surveyor to forge appraisal documents, and that the aunt had coerced their mother, Emma's grandmother, into signing over partial rights to the property while she was slipping into dementia. But the most devastating confession was written in trembling ink across half a page. I told Emma I forgave them. I lied. I thought I could bury the past, but the past digs back. I'm afraid they want the house more than they want peace. And if anything happens to me, if something seems wrong, please tell her it wasn't an accident. Emma's breath stuck. Her heart hammered. Her mother had known. She had suspected something, maybe even feared her own siblings. She read further. They always accused me of being dramatic. But money changes people. Property turns siblings into enemies. I can feel them circling again, asking where I keep my papers, asking if I've finished sorting everything yet. I'm tired. I'm scared. And if Emma ever finds this, I'm sorry. I never wanted to leave her a battlefield." The final line was smudged, as if her mother had cried ink into the page. Emma closed the notebook, her hands shaking. A cold wind pulled at her coat, and then she heard the crunch of footsteps behind her. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Her aunt's clipped, bitter voice carried across the ruins. "So, you found it." Emma rose slowly and faced her aunt and uncle standing together at the edge of the destroyed foundation. They looked tired, worn down by the fight, but not defeated, never defeated. The aunt's arms were crossed tight, and the uncle's jaw twitched in agitation. "We deserve to see what's in that notebook," her uncle said. "It concerns us too." "No," Emma replied quietly. "It concerns what you did." The aunt scoffed, stepping forward. "Your mother was unstable near the end. Grief, stress, she imagined things. You know how she was." "I know exactly how she was," Emma said. "And I know exactly what you did to her." Her uncle's voice dropped into a warning growl. "Be careful with your accusations. Be careful with your lies." Emma shot back. For the first time, they flinched. The wind cut through the silence like a blade. "What's the plan, then?" her aunt finally asked. "Blackmail us. Expose us. You want to drag the family name through the dirt?" Emma looked around at the ashes of the home. "There's nothing left to drag." Her aunt huffed, then turned to her brother. "This is pointless. She's emotional. She'll calm down." But Emma stepped closer, holding the notebook like a shield. "I'm not calming down. I'm done being quiet. This house is gone. But the truth isn't. I'm keeping the journal. All of them. And I'm going to the lawyer tomorrow to challenge every document you used to try to take this place from her." Her uncle's expression twisted, fear mixing with anger. "You don't know what you're starting." "No," Emma said. "I'm finishing what my mother couldn't." The aunt and uncle exchanged a look, the first flicker of doubt she had ever seen on their faces. Then, without another word, they turned and walked away, their silhouettes shrinking against the pale morning sky. Emma stayed long after they were gone, staring at the ruins until the sun edged higher and painted the soot with gold. She knelt, pressed her palm to the cold, broken earth, and whispered, "I'll protect your story. I promise." When she finally left, notebook in hand, she didn't feel victorious. She didn't feel safe. She felt something else, something raw and heavy, but also resolute. This wasn't the end of the conflict. It was the beginning of the reckoning. Her mother's secrets were out. Her family's sins were no longer buried. And Emma knew she would spend months, maybe years, untangling the damage. But for the first time, she felt certain of one thing. Even if the house was destroyed, even if the family fractured beyond repair, the truth had survived. And she would not let anyone rewrite it. Not again. Not ever.